The Bengals will need a Christmas miracle, but hey, crazier things have happened before, right? Listen, here's where we're at now. Here is where we're at as we head in to the holiday season. Merry Christmas to everyone out there. The Bengals have put themselves in a position where despite the 0-3 and 1-4 start in the hell that has been the 2024 season, the Cincinnati Bengals are now in a position where if they win a home game in Week 17, they will have a shot no matter what else happens to get in Week 18. Look, it's a legit Christmas miracle. Odds are low. We'll go through them in a minute. You are in the jungle. I'm Matt Edwards. Thank you so much for joining me. The Bengals beat the Browns 24-6. They sweep Cleveland for the first time since 2017. That's kind of fun, right? We can get rid of that Joe Burrow can't win against the Browns narrative. Let's get to the Browns right now, actually, because like I did earlier in the week, let's just get the bad out of the way first. That was an ugly win. That was not a good Bengals team that we saw on Sunday in Cincinnati. But fortunately for them, they were playing a very bad team. A Browns team that could not help but Browns at every single opportunity they have. Rip off a 66-yarder, the opening play of the game, fumble at the goal line a couple plays later. Later in the game, they threw a pick in the end zone. They had an opportunity to cut the lead to 17-13. With 13 and change to play. They throw an interception in the end zone. The Browns kept shooting themselves in the foot repeatedly. Thank God, because this defense seemed hell-bent on letting them back in, but as soon as they got to the goal line, it was a bend, don't break day. Whether you want to say that was good on the Bengals defense, whether you want to say it was awful on the Cleveland offense, whatever. We'll take it how we can get it this year. We know how bumpy the road has been for Bengals fans and for the team, so no complaining about wins here, but I also think we can all agree that the Bengals were not firing on all cylinders Sunday at Paycor Stadium. And I think it's fair to say, look, since Thursday night, all Bengals fans have been looking ahead toward the Denver game. Once they lost to the Chargers, no one was really talking about this game. Everyone was looking ahead to the Denver game. Maybe the players did too. Maybe the coaches did too. And if they did, all right, you still won 24-6, but man, was that a sloppy-looking game Sunday in Cincinnati. But they got the win 24-6. That's obviously all that matters, but they'll have to be much better than that to win these next two, which of course they need to do to get into the playoffs. Speaking of which, the Bengals get no help on Sunday this week, or Saturday for that matter, but on Sunday, the Colts won, the Dolphins won. They need each of those teams to lose at least one more in addition to winning out. So here's how it looks. I'll break this down as simply as I can. So first and foremost, the Bengals need to win their final two games against Denver and Pittsburgh. Without that, they cannot get in. So that has to happen. Denver needs to lose their final two games against Cincinnati and Kansas City. So Bengals win out, Broncos lose out. In addition to that, the Colts and Dolphins each have to lose one more game this season. The Colts go to the Giants to play in New York, and then they host Jacksonville to close the season out. The Dolphins go to Cleveland and to the New York Jets to close the season out. All of those teams suck, so it's not looking good. But at the same time, the Colts, man, they don't have a great win on their schedule. I don't know. You might as well write the Giants off. They're awful. But Jacksonville in Week 18, and we're going to come back to that at the end of the show. We're going to come back to the Colts and Jags at the very end of the show. But that is one where maybe you feel a little hope. And then the Dolphins, they've been bad in cold weather. They go to Cleveland and then New York the next 2 weeks. So all hope is not lost, but it starts this Saturday in Cincinnati. I don't feel good about it, but I've said it all along. If you're just going to sit around and pout about them having no shot, turn the games off, go do something else. No one's making you watch them. Just to pop back a little bit. The thing that frustrated me most, and I got not a lot, but a little bit of flack online for just wasn't that impressive. And I know it's an 18-point division win, but it just kind of felt like the little mistakes were still there, did it not? On that opening 66-yard run, was it still just not a questionable at best effort from Jermaine Pratt on that tackle? Not to single him out, but there were just things like that all day long, and it felt like the Bengals go up 17-0. It felt like the defense could never, not today, even against the Browns' third-string quarterback with no Nick Chubb. Amari Cooper's gone. They got David Njoku and Jerry Jeudy as their top weapons with Dorian Thompson-Robin at quarterback. Not a lot going on for that offense, and yet the Bengals defense just still cannot help but let every game get a little bit closer than it should be. And it's felt that way all season. The handful of times, there's been very few times that the Bengals have kind of started to pull away this year in a game, and the defense just doesn't let it happen. I mean, I guess Oakland it happened, but just too many times we have seen this. And I know they won by 18. That's good. That's great. They needed a couple breaks to make that happen. And they deserve those breaks because they've been on the wrong end of them all year long. And that's another reason that I say, hey, man, maybe the football gods give us one here and they do sneak into the playoffs because they have been on the wrong end of the stick more often than not this season. They were a couple more times on Sunday, in my opinion, but maybe that's just how it goes and I'm not paying close enough attention to everyone else. But it still feels like when I watch this defense, everyone else is kind of waiting on someone else to make the play. Does anyone else get that vibe that the rest of the defense is just kind of seeing something will happen? Trey Hendrickson, he'll do something, right? It feels like that's the only guy on this defense you have to game plan around. And again, they gave up 6 points on Sunday. Not bad. Best they've done all year. Only gave up 7 to the Giants. So twice this year, they've held teams to single digits. Maybe the 2 worst offenses in the league, sure, but they've done it twice. But it feels like to me there's just no identity with this defense. You game plan, if you're an opponent playing the Bengals, you game plan around shutting down Trey Hendrickson. That's about it. That's about it. Everywhere else, I mean, yeah, there's some guys with some pop, but you can't blitz Mike Hilton every play, you know? Geno Stone's not going to have a ball tipped to him every game. He's got 3 interceptions in a row now. I'm telling you, he's kind of coming on a little bit, and that's great. I think we'd all be glad to be wrong about what most of us felt about him midway through the season. And I think we better get used to it because he's going to be there next year. And he's probably going to be alongside Jordan Battle, who played well today, had a pick in the end zone that was huge today. If not for that, it's probably a 1-score game at one point in the fourth quarter. Chris Jenkins had 2 sacks. There's some young guys you hope are stepping up and giving this defense an identity because right now it doesn't have one. Right now its identity is missed tackles, and that's not an identity you want to have if you're new to the sport of football. So it's kind of one of those things where, yeah, it's awesome, you're up 17-0, but then they just won't let the team pull away. So it was, yeah, that's where we're at. They did create some chaos, and I've been saying that all year. I'd like to see them, you don't really have the talent to just line up and punch people in the face, so get wild a little bit. Von Bell with an awesome punch out on that turnover on the first drive of the game. I mean, when Jordan Battle got the pick, they brought the house. So that's the thing. That's why, and we're not talking about coaches and who should stay and who should go today because there's a playoff game in Cincinnati Sunday, in my mind anyways. And if you want it to be in your mind too, it can be. If you don't want to be there, that's fine. But you look at kind of some of the talent here and you wonder, why was Jordan Battle on the bench for so long? Maybe Chris Jenkins should have played more. I don't know. He's getting better. He's a rookie. I don't know. It just feels like this defense really needs to find an identity immediately. Because right now their identity is 2 things. In my view, if you feel differently, let me know. The YouTube comments are open. But in my opinion, it's their identity is missed tackles and letting teams claw back into games. They always play down to the level of their opponent. And we saw it again on Sunday. And this is it. This is the only negative part of the show today because I'm actually excited about the opportunity to have a big game at Paycor Stadium on Saturday, even though they can't clinch anything with it. It's fun considering where we thought this team was on December 1st after that game against the Steelers. But this defense has to find an identity like this week. If they're going to get in, and who knows if they will, they got to figure things out now. Will they? Probably not because it's week 17. But if some of these young guys can start making some noise, that'd be some good momentum to go in the offseason. So that's what we have, and that sets up a showdown with the Denver Broncos. Broncos are an interesting, they're kind of like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I've watched them a ton. They're 9-6. That's second in the AFC West behind the Kansas City Chiefs. They scored 27 or more points in 5 straight games. They got 10 days rest coming into this one. A lot of us just watched them lose to the Chargers, blow that lead on Thursday Night Football. I don't love that they get the extra rest. No one does, of course, but that's the way it is. And they scored a lot of points, which doesn't bode well for this Bengals defense. We all know what Sean Payton can do when he gets the pieces in place. We all saw what Drew Brees did for 15 years in New Orleans. The thing when I look at them is you kind of remember, oh yeah, they're fighting for a 7th seed. Like the Bengals, you're not fighting for a 7th seed unless you have some flaws. Who are their signature wins? They won at Tampa in week 3. They beat the Colts pretty bad at home 2 weeks ago. Other than that, they're doing a lot of the same things the Bengals are doing. Beating up on bad teams. Jets, Raiders, Saints, Panthers, Vegas, Cleveland, all wins. Okay, you do what you got to do. They don't have a loss against the Patriots on their resume. You look at the losses, they don't really have a bad loss. I mean, no, they don't have a bad loss. They've lost to Seattle, Pittsburgh, the Chargers twice, Baltimore, and Kansas City. I mean, it feels like a Sean Payton coach team. They do the things they should do well. It feels like a veteran coach team. And that's why I thought to myself, for the Zach Taylor haters, this is kind of a game where I think you can really pick a side based on the outcome. You don't have to, but I think you will be able to. If Zach Taylor wants to prove that 2021 and 2022 wasn't just lightning in a bottle, here you go. Big game, biggest one of the season. You're at home. You clearly have the better quarterback. You clearly have the better receiving core. You're an offensive guy. You're going up against a Super Bowl winning head coach in Sean Payton, who undoubtedly gets the most out of his team. You can see that with Denver this year. This is not a team that anyone picked in the preseason to make the Super Bowl or make the playoffs. Certainly no one picked them to make the Super Bowl. Maybe a few people picked them to make the playoffs. I actually think Peter Schrager did. He's a wizard. I don't know how he knows all this stuff. But if Zach Taylor wants to prove a point, wants to prove, hey, that wasn't just a lightning in a bottle moment with me. I deserve to be here. This is kind of the floor for that, isn't it? Kind of the floor is to be able to beat a 7 seed at home in a have-to-have-it game. Can you ask for, less than this? I don't think you can. This is the Bengals' chance to get their signature win on the season, and you hate to do that against a team with a rookie quarterback when you're coming off of playing in 2 of the last 3 AFC championship games, and you're the only team to win the AFC in the last 4 years that doesn't reside in Kansas City. So you want to prove it. You want to prove that, you can back up what you say, that you believe in this team and things are going to be fine. Here you go. Now, I don't see a world where Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, with the heater that they are on, get beat at home in December in a must-win game. I really don't. But at the same time, if you look at the one thing that I think you could argue that's held them back, well, there's a couple things. Offensive line play's not been great at times. You're missing 2 tackles. That's kind of an ongoing issue for the Bengals for seemingly the last 1 million years. But at any rate, if there's one thing that's kind of slowed them down in these big games, you could make the argument that it's how Zach Taylor manages those games. We saw it in Baltimore, man. We saw it in the overtime game. The Bengals are doing whatever they want to Baltimore, and they settle for a long field goal. Joe Burrow could not be stopped on the field that day. They just decided to kind of play as if they had a lead and were fine kicking it away. We saw that. We've seen the Bengals in these big games this year not necessarily make the best moves. And this is a chance for Zach Taylor. Again, that's why, Zach Taylor, he's so close. He's so close to doing all these things right. So here's a chance to do it on Sunday. Here's another chance to say, hey, we've learned from our mistakes. It's not just him, but he's the head coach, so it falls on his shoulders. We've learned from our mistakes in these close games because it's going to be a close game. And we're going to win this one. We're not going to pee this one away. So that's the opportunity. They're 2 okay teams. They're battling for a 7 seed. This isn't, look, the Bengals have played much better teams and had shots to beat them all year long. Beating a team like Denver at home in this should be the floor. The opposite side of that coin I just talked about, if you can't win this game with your MVP candidate quarterback, your all-time single, Jamar Chase is monstrous. He scored another touchdown today. That's 16 on the season. That matches a career high in a single season of both Calvin Johnson and Terrell Owens. If you can't beat a rookie quarterback at home with the playoffs hanging in the balance, then I think the people who don't want Zach Taylor back next year have a pretty good argument. Because if you didn't get through this season without getting one win that wasn't the Browns, I mean, right now the Bengals' best win is the Cowboys against Cooper Rush. And you needed a weirdo block punt that you recovered to seal that one. You got to get a big win at some point. And if you can't win this one at home, the questions that some people are asking get validated, in my opinion. They've had too many of these slip through. You can't, there's no more. They got caught off guard, right? So that's where we're at. It's going to be fun. It's a Saturday game at 4:30 on NFL Network. Again, my advice is to have fun with it. I mentioned it at the top of the show. This is going to be a short episode because it's late. I'm tired. I went to the Ohio State-Tennessee game last night, and that was a fun time. But when you're my age and go to bed at 1 a.m. and you have a toddler, you get very tired from a lack of sleep. So there are people out there who are saying, well, and we've talked about this a lot. They say, well, they're not going to beat anyone. This defense isn't going to stop anyone. They're going to get a worse draft pick, blah, 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 blah. I want you, I'm not going to rip on you, root how you want, but I want you to stop for a second. And I want you to think about next Sunday, or not next Sunday, but Week 18 Sunday. Let's say the Bengals win this weekend. Let's see. Let's just say that the Dolphins lose one of their next two. Bengals win against Pittsburgh. Let's say it comes down to like the Colts and the Jaguars. Let's say it's tied at 20. Jacksonville is lining up for a field goal. This is what I want you to close your eyes and think about. I want you to think every single break goes the Bengals' way. Every single break that the Bengals need from here goes their way. And then you've got the Jags, which the AFC South always seems to have a wonky Week 18. Jags kick a field goal. It goes through. Colts are done. Dolphins are out. Bengals beat the Steelers and the Broncos. Broncos lose to the Chiefs. All the crazy things that need to happen. Think about how nuts you would go if the Bengals sneak into the playoffs and you know who's at quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals, who's at wide receiver, the experience they have, how well they've played in Buffalo, which is where they would probably end up, could they get in? Think about the excitement. Would you rather have a 3 slotted higher draft picks than that? Would you rather not know? I'd rather the Bengals, get beat in the playoffs and never know. I can handle them losing to Josh Allen in Buffalo when he's having an MVP season, although he didn't play like it today and it's going to knock me out of the fantasy playoffs. I can handle that. I'm just stunned that there are people who would rather be a 3 higher draft picks, rather sit around and say, well, the defense wouldn't have done anything anyways. Do you not want to have fun? Do you not want to know? Do you not trust that Joe Burrow can win any game he plays in? Spoiler alert, he can. What are you talking about? I'm not saying they're going to go on a Super Bowl run, but you're saying the opportunity to go get a playoff win? What's happened to us as a fan base? We used to just be happy to be on that in the hunt graphic. I know the bar has been raised as it should, but this idea of who cares if they get in the playoffs, they're not going to stop anyone. Who have we become? That's not the Bengals fan base. Don't get spoiled. We've seen that. I mean, look at Kansas City. I don't have to tell you the details. We've seen them. I won't go down that road. We don't have to worry about that. What I'm saying is sports are fun. Have fun with them. What else is the point? So you want a higher draft pick so they can draft John Ross again? Get out of here. All right, short episode. Sorry, I'm tired. It was a fun weekend. It was a long weekend. And fortunately, the Sunday night game between the Cowboys and Bucks is of no interest to me, so I'll be able to go to bed at a decent hour. I'll have another episode out this week. I don't know if it's going to be Thursday or Friday. It's Christmas. I hope everyone has an awesome Christmas and celebrate with your loved ones and be happy. Stay off the freaking internet. My God. I mean, some of the miserable people in my mentions on Twitter today, like, what are we doing here? I thought about that being at the Tennessee game. So the Ohio State-Tennessee game, like Tennessee fans online, nut jobs. Talked to 20 or 30 of them yesterday. All the nicest people you've ever met. Quit hanging out online. That's my one for the road. That's my old man up on my high horse rant. Like, what are we doing? That's like Kirk Herbstreit calling out, like saying the fringe lunatic fans. Kirk, how many of them are you talking to in person? Are you just sitting on your private jet looking at your phone the whole time? Get off your phones. People outside, like there's so many nice, cool things in this world, including the potential of the Cincinnati Bengals winning a game at Paycor Stadium on Saturday at 4:30 against the Denver Broncos and having a shot to go to the playoffs in Week 18. And here we are scrolling TikTok, seeing people get killed 7 states away, telling us the world's going to end. My God. It's a lovely world out there. Get outside. People from Tennessee even are nice. All right, this podcast is called In the Jungle. My name is Matt Edwards. If you like it, you can tell like whoever you want, like your loved ones, you can be like, hey, I bought you a free subscription to this podcast. Just send them the YouTube link. Say, you just have to click subscribe. I already paid for it. Tell them it was like $1,000 if you want. So if you like it, send it along. If you don't, I don't know why you're still listening. I appreciate you tuning in. I'll have another episode out Thursday, Friday, sometime before Saturday. I'll do my best. I'm going to be hanging out with my family as much as possible this week. I hope you all do the same. Have a Merry Christmas, everyone.